This is macOS Ken.
Wall Street weighs in on one more thing, early benchmarks for M1 Macs, and one of Apple's epic complaints gets tossed. It's Thursday, the 12th of November, 2020. I'm Ken Ray, and this is news from macOS Ken, brought to you by yours truly and sponsored by MacPaw, makers of Clean My Mac X. Your Mac as good as new. Learn more about Clean My Mac X and download it for free at macpaw.app/macOSCan. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSCan. Tuesday's One More Thing event announcing 3 new Macs powered by the M1 Apple Silicon didn't prompt any target moves from Wall Street. Still, there was reaction, some of which was caught and pinned by Philip Elmer DeWitt on his Apple 3.0 blog. Cowen & Company analyst Krish Sankar thinks Apple's choice to release not 1, not 2, but 3 M1-powered Macs was bold and perhaps shows the confidence in the technology's readiness. He thinks fewer than 1 million of the Apple Silicon Macs will sell this quarter, though he's looking for that to go up to about 4 million next quarter. While he can't seem to say for certain, he doesn't expect the move to be problematic in terms of applications. In fact, he writes, the opposite could be true, as the universe of iOS apps will also be compatible with the new macOS Big Sur, in addition to existing x86 applications. Sankar has an outperform rating on Apple's shares. His price target on the shares is $133. Raymond James analyst Chris Casso thinks switching to in-house Mac chips will strengthen Apple's ecosystem and ultimately help to drive Apple's revenue from services. He's got an outperform rating on Apple's shares and a price target of $140. Absolutely refusing to be impressed with Apple of late is Goldman Sachs analyst Rod Hall. Actually, let me take that back. He does seem impressed in his note, though his rating and target price say otherwise. Quoting that note, we see this departure to Apple's own silicon designs as a key strategic advantage for Apple in the PC market that should allow continued share gains in less price-sensitive markets. We also believe the M1, combined with macOS, offers unique security benefits that should help to drive a continued increase in business adoption of Apple's Mac lineup. Other things that could work for Apple include better than expected iPhone demand, stronger demand for wearables, better than expected services growth, OPEX reductions, and significantly outsized buybacks and meaningful dividend increases. And yet, he has a sell rating on Apple shares and a price target of $75. On Twitter on Wednesday, Horace Didier referred to Hall as a comedy analyst. Kinda harsh, totally funny. Finally, Morgan Stanley analyst Katie Huberty is impressed with Apple's overall growth through the September quarter, allowing in her note for the late launch of the iPhone 12 line. That growth is now set to continue in her estimation with the broadest and most updated product portfolio in the company's history. Quoting her note, despite a challenging environment with much of the workforce remote and disruption to suppliers and Apple's own retail stores, Apple was able to deliver a monumental 9 months of software, hardware, and services launches in 2020, which speaks to both the significant R&D investment but also the company's strong culture of executing on engineering, supply chain, and integration efforts. By our estimates, she continues, Apple refreshed products that account for 80% of revenue, including the iPhone, iPad, Mac, and Apple Watch, which all harness the power of Apple-designed silicon, while also launching new services, including Apple Fitness Plus and the Apple One subscription bundle. Apple's 5G iPhone 12 was the most talked about product launch of the year, but what investors have learned in recent years is that the Apple story is about much more than just the iPhone. Huberty has an overweight rating on Apple shares. Her price target on the shares is $136. How does the M1 MacBook Air stack up against Intel-powered machines? In terms of raw power, MacRumor says it can go toe-to-toe with the high-end 16-inch MacBook Pro. Then step on its toe, kick it in the shin, and leave it crying on the floor, wishing for the sweet release of death. Okay, that got a bit dark. According to the report, the first benchmark of the new chip appears to be showing up on the Geekbench site, and they include numbers. Quoting MacRumors, the M1 chip, which belongs to a MacBook Air with 8 GB of RAM, features a single-core score of 1687 and a multi-core score of 7433. According to the benchmark, the M1 has a 3.2 GHz base frequency. When compared to existing devices, the piece says the M1 chip in the MacBook Air outperforms all iOS devices. Interesting, though close to useless, since you probably wouldn't be buying a MacBook Air to replace an iPhone or an iPad. In comparison to Macs, the report continues, the single-core performance is better than any other available Mac, and the multi-core performance beats out all of the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro models, including the 10th generation high-end 2.4 GHz Intel Core i9 model. That high-end 16-inch MacBook Pro earned a single-core score of 1096 and a multi-core score of 6870. Now let me pause here to remind you, I don't do numbers like these, mostly because I don't understand numbers like these. I mean, they sound faster, so cool. Then again, MacRumors points out, though the M1 chip is outperforming the 16-inch MacBook Pro models when it comes to raw CPU benchmarks, the 16-inch MacBook Pro likely offers better performance in other areas, such as the GPU, as those models have higher power, discrete GPUs. Also, there seem to be some variables. In an update, MacRumors said a benchmark had turned up for the 13-inch MacBook Pro with M1 chip and 16 GB of RAM, while its single-core score of 1714 beat the MacBook Air's 1687. Its multi-core score of 6802 actually came up short compared to the MacBook Air's multi-core score of 7433. Hey, remember the old days when Apple said things like 3.5 times faster and 5 times faster? I think we called those days day before yesterday. In the wake of new machines, what has Apple pulled off the table? Only one thing seems to be gone entirely. iDownload blog says the Cupertino company has discontinued the Intel-based MacBook Air, while Intel-based versions of Mac Mini and, of course, MacBook Pro remain. The way iDownload blog and the piece I read from the Next Web see it, the Intel machines are likely sticking around for the memory. Quoting the iDownload blog piece, Apple has probably decided to continue offering these Intel configurations because the inaugural version of the M1 chip maxes out at 16 GB of RAM, while built-to-order Intel configurations allow you to boost the RAM beyond 16 GB, up to 64 GB of RAM on some models. For instance, the 16-inch MacBook Pro wasn't updated Tuesday and continues to use Intel chips, while offering the choice between 16, 32, or 64 GB of RAM. More news in a moment, but first a word from MacPaw, makers of Clean My Mac X. Your Mac is constantly making and holding on to little bits of data it really doesn't need. A few weeks ago, the Smart Scan in Clean My Mac X found over 22 gigabytes of user cache files and language files on my Mac. It also got rid of them. And a few weeks later, another 4 gigabytes of the same stuff had shown up on my machine. What's cool is I was able to find it again and clean it again with Clean My Mac X. But it's not just about freeing up space. The optimization tools in Clean My Mac X can help you boot up faster, free up RAM, and run maintenance scripts to speed up processes that can slow your Mac down. VentureBeat has called Clean My Mac X the best whole system cleaner around, a Swiss Army knife of simple tools that radically slim a Mac's software footprint, improve performance, and augment Apple's existing malware protection. You've already got the best computer for you. Help it run better with Clean My Mac X. Learn more about Clean My Mac X and download it for free at macpaw.app/macOSken. That's MACPAW, macpaw.app/macOSken. That's macpaw.app/macOSken for Clean My Mac X. And a big thanks to MacPaw for sponsoring today's show. While you can't have one of Apple's newest computers today, you can make the Mac you have feel like a different machine. That is a reminder that macOS 11 Big Sur is due out today. A piece from Mac Rumors figures it'll be out before 10:30 a.m. Pacific. Personally, I'm not going that way today. If you do, though, I would love to hear how it goes. Email me, info@macosken.com, or give me a call, 716-780-4080. Guess who is getting a cellular Apple Watch? No, it's not me. It's Belgium, man. Belgium. iDownload blog has Telenet, a cell carrier in the country, saying in a press release that it'll start offering service for GPS plus cellular Apple Watches tomorrow, Friday the 13th of November. Anyway, that's what Telenet says. For its part, Apple has yet to say that it will be offering cellular watches in the country. In fairness, though, Apple has been busy. Part of Apple's suit against Fortnite publisher Epic Games has been tossed. Honestly, the toss claim is kind of funny. Apple had sued Epic for theft, according to a piece from Apple Insider. You likely remember what started all of this was Epic setting up a purchasing system inside the Fortnite app for iOS. That purchasing system bypassed Apple's in-app purchase mechanism, depriving Apple of the 30% it would normally get from such sales. Apparently, it is that 30% commission that Apple argued was stolen. Judge Yvonne Gonzalez-Rogers had expressed doubt about the claim before Apple argued it. Having heard Apple's argument, it didn't fly, narrowing Apple's avenues of relief to breach of contract, according to the report. Apple expressed disappointment with the judge's decision, though it still seems confident on the breach of contract thing. Quoting part of a statement from the company, in ways the court described as deceptive and clandestine, Epic enabled a feature in its app which was not reviewed or approved by Apple, and they did so with the express intent of violating the App Store guidelines that apply equally to every developer who sells digital goods and services. Their reckless behavior made pawns of customers, and we look forward to making it right for them in court next May. And finally today, just in time for the PS5, the Apple TV app has made its way to Sony's gaming consoles. PlayStation 5 launches today in Australia, Canada, Japan, Mexico, New Zealand, South Korea, and the US, hitting more countries a week from today. Apparently time to coincide with the new console's launch. A piece from Mac Rumors says the Apple TV app is now out for both PS4 and PS5. Coming up in a few minutes, NosillaCast's Allison Sheridan is on the line, offering her take on the One More Thing event. Topics include a lack of terminology, whether now is the time to buy one of these new Macs, and drinking. Find out which one we talk about most in a few minutes wherever you get podcasts. Big fun on yesterday's macOS Ken Live, but will today be just as fun? Find out at 3:30 p.m. Pacific, 6:30 Eastern. That is when I go live on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/KenRay. Of course, you can also catch the audio podcast, macOS Ken Live, wherever podcasts are caught. macOS Ken, brought to you by me and sponsored by MacPaw, makers of Clean My Mac X. Learn more about Clean My Mac X and download it for free at macpaw.app/macOSKen. This show is also supported by people like you, patrons through Patreon. Find out more and add your support at patreon.com/macOSKen. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media. Online at backbeatmedia.com. You can reach me a couple of ways. info@macosken.com or call 716-780-4080. Until next time, that is news from macOS Ken. I'm Ken Ray.